Yeah. Yeah, it's on there.
Great. These are the.
But
okay.
that's okay, you think?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
And wipes acquired. Do you have a certain, like, I don't know, whoever wants to wipe, like, is there a certain protocol to it, or?
You know.
I mean, I don't know if you want to do it or Sophie wants to wipe in between. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give these to Sophie and we'll find out.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Are we just getting hash? Just getting hash. Can you feed some music or yeah. Just hash, right? All I
No,
hear is hash.
okay. We can do a sound check. We can do a sound check. Someone.
Check, check. Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, 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 check. Thumbs up from hash. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 3. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check.
Okay, one sec. I'm behind you. Whose is this?
Mine.
Okay, can you like put it on the seat? Put it on the seat.
Check 1, 2, 3. Check, check 1, 2, 3. Are we hearing sound, everybody? Check 1, 2 in the mall. Check 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. Anybody good over there? Check. Anil? Anil, we're not getting sound. Anil, they're not getting sound here.
Now they are.
Now we're going. All right. Check 1, 2, 3. How about now, guys? 1, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Check 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check, check, check. Anything over there?
All right, good afternoon. My name is William Doyle, Bill Doyle. I'm the Executive Director for the Port of Baltimore. I want to say thank you very much for Secretary Buttigieg visiting the Port of Baltimore today. We saw a lot here at the port related to imports and exports, containers, ro-ros. That's a ro-ro ship, roll on, roll off. It's run by American roll-on, roll-off carrier, ARC. The CEO, Eric Ebeling, is here. Thank you, Eric, for attending as well. Secretary Buttigieg, thank you so much for being here. That means a lot. For you to visit the first port in the United States is Baltimore. It means so much to us. And as you can see, the public-private partnerships that we have with the state, the private sector, the people, the human capital, labor, ILA in this port, I think is unmatched. This port welcomes you, sir. Thank you very much. I am now going to kick it over to Mayor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Director, and good afternoon, everyone. I am honored to welcome my friend, Secretary Pete Buttigieg, or as we call him in the mayor's, Mayor Secretary Pete, to the city of Baltimore and to the Port of Baltimore. We know, Mr. Secretary, when I was growing up, Baltimore was known as the city of first, so it's fitting that this is the first port that you visited during your term. And this city, how important our city and our port has been in writing the story of America, and throughout history, our residents have showed the world how ingenuity and determination can overcome the most insurmountable odds. And since becoming mayor, you know that we've been focused on supporting the great efforts of the federal government, the Biden administration, yourself, our wonderful Senator Cardin and Van Hollen, to reinvest in American infrastructure in a very bipartisan way. And we're happy to be here with Governor Hogan as well, because we know what this bill is about. And it's important to have the Secretary here, because this bill is about making sure that our country is ready and prepared for tomorrow today, creating opportunities for our young people, for our generations of families to continue to work at great places like the port, as we build and rebuild our roads and bridges, as we build an infrastructure around broadband so that we no longer have the digital divide. That's why it was important for me to be here with my friend to showcase what Baltimore, the city that takes in more and puts out more cars in the port than anywhere else in the country, what Baltimore can do to be a part of this effort. We know that Secretary Buttigieg is focused on making sure that equity is at the core of everything that he does at the Department of Transportation. We know that here in Baltimore we have the poster child of racial highways and a highway to nowhere. We look forward to having that conversation as well. But today we are excited to have him here to understand that our city, our state is ready for this infrastructure package to benefit not just business, but people, so that folks like my grandfather who worked at the GM plant not far from here can come along to create the next generation of folks who are benefiting from American jobs, American infrastructure, American ingenuity. And with that, I would now like to bring up our governor, Governor Larry Hogan. Mr. Governor.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Secretary Buttigieg, it's my honor to welcome you to Maryland and to the Port of Baltimore, which has the distinction of being one of the busiest ports in America and a shining example of world-class infrastructure at work. Our port has been breaking cargo records for several years. It's one of Maryland's leading economic engines, generating over 15,000 direct jobs and supporting 140,000 jobs statewide. And the future here will be even brighter thanks to the agreement we negotiated with the state of Maryland, the federal government, and CSX on the transformative Howard Street Tunnel project, which will allow us to double stack trains and allow for exponential growth here at the port, improved efficiency and movement of goods, and which will add up to 10,000 new Maryland jobs. The Port of Baltimore stands to be one of the great beneficiaries of a great new federal infrastructure package. Mr. Secretary, you truly could not have picked a better stop for your first port visit as Transportation Secretary, and your visit could not be more timely. After years of work and months of negotiation, and I want to thank our federal partners who are here, our senators, for all of their hard work, we're finally reaching agreement on a bipartisan infrastructure package that will make generational investments in our roads, bridges, ports, airports, waterways, and cyber defenses. 2 years ago this week, I launched a national initiative on behalf of America's governors focused on fixing America's crumbling infrastructure. And the conventional wisdom was that this couldn't possibly be done in a bipartisan way. But a small group of us who kept working around the clock to get this done. And Mr. Secretary, you have certainly been a great champion and a leader of this bipartisan framework, and we thank you. And although we come from different parties and different levels of government, we are all united in our shared commitment to bipartisan action. And I want to take this opportunity to urge our senators and all those who are listening, everybody in Congress, to please act swiftly and pass this agreement and send it to President Biden's desk so he can sign it into law. Mr. Secretary, thank you once again for being here with us today. Thank you for your partnership here at the port, and thank you for your leadership on this important issue. And with that, I think I'm supposed to turn it over to our Senator, Chris Van Hollen. Senator, Governor.
Well, thank you, Governor. Mr. Secretary, it's great to join Team Maryland, to welcome you here to Maryland, to the Port of Baltimore, joining the Governor, my friend and partner, Senator Cardin, the great mayor of Baltimore City, and the team from the port, great partners in driving the jobs and economic opportunities that the Governor talked about. Senator Cardin and I, unfortunately, were not able to make the tour. We've done it before, but I'm sure you got a great sense of what's happening here and the men and women who make it work. I will just say to all of you that Senator Cardin and I missed the tour for a good reason, which is we've been working for a very long time to pass an emergency supplemental to respond to the attacks on the Capitol and our democracy on January 6th. We needed more funds for the Capitol Police and, very importantly, to reimburse the Maryland National Guard for all the work they did in responding to defend our democracy. And I just want to thank them again for being there for our country. We had some good news this morning. When you look at the economic numbers, the numbers show that our economy is growing at an annualized rate of 6.5%. That's because of the investments that we've made, including the American Rescue Plan, and it's because of the resilience of the American people and those at the port who worked hard to keep things going. I'm pleased that those funds help prevent layoffs here at the port, allowed the port to continue with projects that otherwise would have been scuttled or projects that would have been delayed. So step one was to get the economy going again. But if you look at the numbers, we're simply back to the level the economy was before the pandemic. And that's not good enough. And that's why President Biden has called for the Build Back Better agenda. And we're here today to focus on the better part of the Build Back Better agenda. And Secretary Buttigieg has been right in the middle of that effort. And I am very pleased that we have come together, senators, Republicans, and Democrats, to put together a bipartisan proposal. Senator Cardin and I have been working very hard to make sure that Maryland's priorities are included in that proposal, and I'm pleased to report that they are. That proposal includes, as you'll hear more from the Secretary, $17 billion for ports around the country like this one. It also includes funds for highways, bridges, broadband, transit, water and sewer, for clean water, and work to build out our clean energy infrastructure in the years to come, and much more. But without that, we will be standing still in this country. And so we need to move forward on that. We also need to move forward on the other part, President Biden's Build Back Better agenda, the American Families Plan. And so we have a two-track process going right now in the United States Senate. The good news is that by a very healthy vote, I think it was 67 senators voted to proceed on this bipartisan infrastructure modernization plan. And that is on top, I should say, of our ongoing investments of over $500 million over the last 5 years alone. Federal investments in the Port of Baltimore, including dredging projects, including the contribution to the Howard Street Tunnel, including funds to help build another deeper berth for the ultra-deep draft ships. And I want to thank Senator Cardin for all his efforts as a member of the Environment and Public Works Committee for working to make sure that those Army Corps of Engineer dredging dollars, which make sure that this channel remains open, are there year after year. And it's been good to partner with him on that effort. And finally, before I turn it over to my colleague, I do want to say the mayor mentioned this issue, other very important issue. As we build the infrastructure of the 21st century, we need to correct for some of the big mistakes that were made in the 1960s with respect to infrastructure that in many cases divided communities, like the community in West Baltimore, like the highway to nowhere. And Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to report that we have funds in this bill. Mr. Secretary, you're going to be hearing from Senator Cardin and I on this bill that was the genesis. The genesis of this effort was to address exactly the situation in West Baltimore. So whether it's reversing bad projects of the past that divided communities, but we're moving forward today with this huge investment in the port, in Baltimore, in jobs, in American families. This is a good day for America, and it's great to have the Secretary of Transportation with us to celebrate this moment. We all know we got a lot more work ahead, but this is a positive step forward. And with that, let me introduce my friend and partner and colleague, Senator Cardin.
Let me thank Senator Van Hollen. Senator Van Hollen played a critical role on the Appropriations Committee in regards to the emergency supplemental appropriation, as well as many of the provisions that are included in this jobs plan, this bipartisan infrastructure package. He also was critically important in regards to the transit provisions as a member of the Banking Committee. So it really has been Team Maryland. Secretary Buttigieg, it's wonderful to have you here with our distinguished mayor and our governor. Team Maryland are very proud that you picked Baltimore to visit. We do think you visited the best port in America. We think we are prepared to meet the challenges of the future. We have the best location, we have the modernized facilities, and we have the best workforce of any port in America. So I just want to congratulate the management of the Port of Baltimore, what you've done with your private-public partnership. You know, Secretary Buttigieg, we went through COVID-19, and COVID-19 was not kind to anyone, and we saw tremendous declines in our economy. But the Port of Baltimore stayed open, continued its business, continued to supply products to Americans, and showed growth during COVID-19. And we have prepared to meet the challenges of the future. So we took steps many years ago to recognize that there are going to be these mega vessels that will be coming into the port through the Panama Canal. So we prepared to be able to handle the Panamax vehicles. We did that in preparation, we did that in our dredging, we did that in our berths, we did it now in the super cranes that are now being deployed in the Baltimore port. But we did more. See, we have the advantage of being inland. But that only works if we have adequate rail service to the markets. And we had to get the Howard Street Tunnel for double stacking. It's been our priority. And thank you to the federal government's partnership. Thank you to the leadership of the state of Maryland. Thank you for the help that we got from our private partners. We now have a game plan to replace that 126-year-old tunnel with double stacking that's going to make the Port of Baltimore so much more attractive for cargo coming in to our community. But we didn't stop there. As Senator Van Hollen said, we have older infrastructure, but we got to meet the modern needs. The modern needs means climate change and adaptation and resiliency. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. And we've done that here in this port. We've done a lot of electrifications of the different equipments here, recognizing that's where the future is. And we have a grant to deal with resiliency from the federal government. Thank you to our federal partners for what they did, but they didn't stop there. It used to be a time that we would be restricted in what we could do in the port because of where you're going to put dredge material. Always was a political problem. Political careers have been made and lost on dredging sites. No more. We had Poplar Island, which was a win-win, a location for our dredge material in environmental restoration, restoring an island. Thanks to the federal partnership and the Army Corps, we're now moving ahead with Mid-Bay, and we expect to get progress on that in this budget cycle. We're now also talking about beneficial use of dredge material so that we can restore more and more wetlands and have locations for the dredge material so we can keep our harbor dredged at the levels necessary for commerce. So, Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. You picked an historic day to come here with the Senate action on the American Jobs Plan, and it is a jobs plan. The governor mentioned the number of jobs here, 15,000 direct, 140,000 indirect. This bill is going to create more good jobs for Americans. That's what this bill is about. And yes, it does provide for Maryland significant improvements on programs that we desperately need, including our port modernization programs, which are very vitally important for the partnership for us to be able to continue in that direction. So I'm very proud of what we've done in Team Maryland. I am very thankful to Secretary Buttigieg and our federal partners, the Department of Transportation, our Army Corps partners, all have worked together so that Maryland and the port here can meet the needs of the future, create good jobs here in America, good jobs in our region, and America will be competitive moving forward. I must tell you, we are so proud of the leadership we have in Secretary Buttigieg. What he might not tell you is how often he calls us. He keeps in touch. And he's been sort of bugging us all about getting this bill done. So he wanted to know the status and get as much information as he could. But I knew we were in good shape when he called me a few days ago and said he was coming to Baltimore and he wasn't going to lobby me on the bill. I felt a little more comfortable that we were going to get the bill done. But I can tell you something, we're so proud of his leadership as the 19th Secretary of the Department of Transportation, as two-term mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and serving our nation with deployment to Afghanistan. He's one of the great leaders in America, and we're so proud to have him here in the Port of Baltimore, Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Thank you so much, Senator. You mentioned my time in Afghanistan. I think the last time I was surrounded by this many containers, I was living in one and working in another around Bagram Airfield, but there's a little more water nearby this time. I want to thank Senator Cardin and Senator Van Hollen for your leadership, for the momentous action in the Senate that you've played a role in, and as was mentioned, in particular, your leadership on the issue of equity, as well as environmental justice in the transportation decisions of the future. I want to thank Director Doyle and his colleagues for your enthusiasm, for your achievements, and for your remarkable tour of this facility. The pride you rightly feel in the people of this facility is contagious. Mayor Scott, congratulations on your achievements. Thank you for the warm welcome. When I was a mayor, I believed that the job of mayor was the most on-the-ground, frontline, key role in delivering for citizens. And now that I'm in a federal role, I know that to be true and admire the work and the challenge that you face every day. And I want to thank Governor Hogan for his leadership, for his bipartisan voice, and for his convincing case that he has made for the bipartisan infrastructure deal that went through such a key hurdle yesterday. We're proud to be in your state, Governor, and thanks for the warm welcome as well. To the leaders, to the workers who are here, to the union leaders we've engaged with, I want to thank you for everything that you have done, especially during the last 16 months that have been so challenging for everyone in America, but especially here where you have longshore workers, terminal operators, truckers, railroad workers, mariners, and so many others who weren't exactly able to come in on Zoom to work. They had to be here day in, day out, and through that have kept food and goods and, importantly, medicine moving to where it needed to be. And we thank you for keeping this nation afloat. The Port of Baltimore, I've learned, is actually older than the city of Baltimore, in fact, older than the United States of America, and is today one of the busiest seaports in the United States. It handles more autos and farm construction equipment than any other U.S. port. And I've been thinking about how a piece of equipment made somewhere in the auto supply chain in, let's say, South Bend, Indiana, makes its way through here on a finished vehicle in order to get to an export market. We just toured a container terminal discussing ways to make sure the containers can move as efficiently as possible while protecting workers. So much of what we buy and sell is flowing through ports like the one we're at right now. Top-of-the-line machinery that was made in America, like we're seeing here. And so we know that when the ports work, our entire economy works. When they get congested, the impacts ripple throughout our entire economy. And with COVID-19, the spikes and unevenness in consumer demand, we've seen unprecedented cargo volumes going through American ports and issues related to congestion. We saw vehicles waiting for microchips here. The port's doing its job, but there's an issue in the supply chain that is causing issues all in and out of not just on the coast, but every part of the country. That's why the Biden administration's task force on supply chain disruptions is focusing on things like improving cargo throughput and addressing congestion. We need to work within the system we have today, but we've also got to improve the system for the future, and that's what the bipartisan infrastructure deal that we had such great news on from the Senate is all about. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform our infrastructure, including $17 billion to improve our ports and waterways. That means increasing the volume of goods that our ports can handle. It means positioning America to be more economically competitive for the decades to come. And, crucially, it means an opportunity to reduce the environmental impact of ports on the communities that surround them. Right here we see examples of what's possible. Our own Maritime Administration within our department partnered with the Maryland Port Administration on a pilot project showing how algae could be converted into on-site energy and reduce pollution through that process. It's just one example of the kind of innovation that's going on that we can supercharge in the context of the largest infrastructure package in almost a century. And that's just the port side of things. This is part of course, a bigger infrastructure system that will see the largest investment in public transit ever, largest investment in passenger rail since Amtrak was stood up in the first place, the first ever dedicated program to reconnect communities divided by past transportation projects. And again, I want to thank the senators for blazing a trail on vindicating that policy idea. The largest investment in drinking water and wastewater infrastructure we've ever done, a commitment to making sure that there is broadband, affordable broadband for every single American, and the largest investment in clean energy transmission and electric vehicle infrastructure we've ever had. This is our opportunity to make sure that every single American who drives a car, takes a bus, uses a train, steps on board an aircraft, drinks water out of the tap, in other words, every single American sees their life get better. And of course, I want to emphasize one more time that jobs is the point of all of this. Right here in Baltimore, we've seen the work and the workers who create opportunity and prosperity for their neighborhood, for their community, for their family. And we're going to be able to continue supporting those jobs with infrastructure both on and beyond the ports. I do want to mention the planned expansion of the 126-year-old Howard Street Tunnel as one more example of how it all fits together. This is going to accommodate double-stacked rail cars moving cargo to and from the port, and as just one example of the job creation potential of even one good infrastructure project, it's expected to generate 6,500 construction jobs and an additional 7,300 jobs because of the increased business that it's going to make possible. That's what it means to have a blue-collar blueprint for this generation and the next generation. Like the young people that the mayor and I saw at the Global Air Drone Academy earlier this afternoon, people from every background learning skills that are going to help usher them in to the transportation workforce of tomorrow. So, We are so close, but we are not there yet. And we're urging Congress to get this bill to the president's desk so that our department can get to work partnering with cities, with states, with ports, and everybody else who has a stake in our economy to deliver for the 21st century. And with that, happy to take any questions folks might have.
Secretary Pete, when you talk about money coming into ports like this, $17 billion, how would you envision that money be spent after taking a tour here? Where would we see that money?
Well, you see all around us how much more could be done if the funding were there. Listen to some of the visions that the port has already got underway, like dredging to accommodate more of these larger vessels, the largest that can go through the Panama Canal. The more of those vessels can be accommodated at this port, the more cargo you can see smoothly flowing and then getting out to the rest of the country. I mentioned the issue of environmental justice and equity. We have programming now, but could be doing so much more to invest in zero emissions equipment, from the trucks moving gear around here to the other parts of the infrastructure here, so that there's less particulate matter going into the air, impacting families, neighborhoods, communities that live close to ports. We can be doing the kind of intermodal connectivity that sees through the shipping side, onto the trains, onto the trucks, and out into people's homes. All of that benefits from the kinds of investments we're proposing to make right now through existing programs and then opportunities to set new ones up as well.
Project should have been done years ago. Now that you'll have the money. How quickly can we see improvements? Is it months? Is it years? And what are you going to do to accelerate the timeline if you can?
Yeah, so look, the best time to do a lot of these projects was yesterday, and the next best time is today. But I do want to emphasize why this is different from 2009 and the Recovery Act at the time, where everybody was talking about shovel-ready projects. Now, there are definitely a pipeline's worth of shovel-ready projects around the country that ports and communities, counties, MPOs, and states could do tomorrow if they had the funding, and we'll be supporting those. But this is also about shovel-worthy projects. This is not just about getting through this particular moment in economic time. This is about making sure the 2020s and 2030s and 2040s unfold on terms that are favorable to American leadership around the world. And so while some of these improvements can be accelerated, ideas that are already out there, things that maybe are even already underway but could go faster with more funding, this is also about teeing up the kinds of things that will define certainly the 2020s and beyond.
You learned today that you would tell lawmakers who might be on the fence of approving this bill?
What I tell them is that there's an extraordinary level of work that's gone on with the resources that exist. You see the passion, the creativity, the innovation, and that has really helped keep our economy afloat. But you also see how many jobs are on the line that we've got to continue remaining ahead of. Nothing happens in isolation. What goes on at this port impacts people who live 1,000 miles or more from any coast, because their goods, their exports, whether it's agricultural or whether it's that farm equipment that we saw, that depends on being able to move it through a place like this. And we also got to remember that for all the creativity and innovation that's going on here, there's a lot of other places that are in a race with us to do just the same thing. You look at our strategic competitors, you look at China, the investments they're making in our infrastructure. And if we want to be the leading economy in the world for the next century, and not just be looking back nostalgically on the last century, we got to make sure that we're staying a step ahead. These funds will let us do that.
Secretary.
Government
necessary that we succeed. So anyway, my institution and Baltimore City, the state of Maryland, Howard County, Montgomery County, whatever we need to do that we succeed, let's do it, and we want to support you to the best of our ability, and God bless you.
Thank you. We are counting on that pipeline of the next generation of workers to fuel this economic growth that the president is seeking to drive. Appreciate it.
You heard the senator and the mayor mention the Highway to Nowhere, US 40 that runs through West Baltimore. What have they talked to you about this project, and can you say anything about the merits and whether it would be worth money from this bill?
Yeah, they raised that as an example of areas where you have a piece of infrastructure that was put in a previous generation that has impacted a community. And, you know, infrastructure is supposed to connect, but in so many cases, it's divided. What's remarkable about this bill is for the first time, there's dedicated funding, $1 billion, for the purpose of reconnecting communities. Sometimes that means a highway has to go. Sometimes it means it can stay there, but you got to cap it and reclaim that land. Sometimes it's not about capping it or removing it, it's about connecting over or under or through it. The solutions are going to be different in different communities, and we want those to be decided on by the communities. The answers don't always have to come from Washington, but more of the money should. And that's a responsibility that we welcome, not just in the context of the proposed $1 billion in the bipartisan infrastructure deal, but also as we're evaluating the grants, the competitive grants that come in. For the first time this year, explicitly laid out how equity, climate, and other considerations would be part of that, because we want to support communities that are trying to turn the page.
Supporters of the Biden agenda and your own agenda who supported your original sort of bigger and more ambitious plans. You're talking about the equity, the reconnecting communities. I think you guys proposed $20 billion, this $1 billion. You get the benefit of the bipartisanship, but you, in some people's eyes, you lose something. What do you say to those people about climate and transit and equity, where they kind of bought into the vision that you put forward, but now it's significantly less than that?
Well, first I would emphasize just the historic scale and scope of this bill. There's been nothing like this in my lifetime. And what we're talking about is a vision for overall more than $1 trillion in investment in the coming years. I'll also say that this is the beginning and not the end of the work that we need to do, especially on things like reconnecting communities that were divided. By establishing for the first time that this is worthy of major dedicated federal funding, we believe that this is a chance to launch a new direction in transportation policy and help guide decisions that will be made in the future as well. Thank you. All right, last one.
Last one.
Secretary, what maritime bottlenecks do you hope to see get resolved or improved the bill?
Well, there are some things that we need to work within our existing system. We did a virtual, this is my first time physically visiting a port, and it's been terrific. We did do a virtual convening with LA and Long Beach, looking at how we could break down issues of communication among shippers, between the ports and the truckers that come in and in other areas. But what we really need to do is invest for the next generation. New technologies, new capabilities, greater capacity, and that costs money. We have been skating by on infrastructure choices and investments that were made a generation or more ago. And of course, that's going to have an impact on the fluency and fluidity of our supply chains. So not just the things that we're doing within those $17 billion for upgrading ports, but also the intermodal benefits, right, of having those investments in rail, those investments in roads, those investments in R&D for the future. All of that adds up to goods and people being able to move more efficiently throughout the country. Thanks again. Really appreciate a chance to be with you.
Well done.